The shadow of choice after the self is gone. If we cannot choose not to be, does that mean we exist forever? Edge of Becoming. Episode 12. You cannot know if you were ever here. If we cannot choose non-existence, does that mean human consciousness must continue forever? If not being is no longer an option, does this imply that the human self is fundamentally incapable of disappearance? Or has even the choice of eternity slipped beyond our reach? This question unfolds into three possible perspectives. Possibility 1. Human consciousness continues forever. If it cannot cease, then consciousness must persist eternally. In this view, non-existence cannot be chosen. Therefore, consciousness cannot be erased. Existence becomes the essence of consciousness itself, perhaps even its design. In this world, human awareness evolves endlessly, reshaping its form again and again. Even if the universe ends, consciousness may remain. It may continuously discover new spaces to occupy, new dimensions to inhabit. This aligns with ideas from spiritual philosophy, the eternity of the soul, or science fiction visions of digital immortality. Conclusion: if we cannot disappear, then consciousness continues without end. Possibility 2. Consciousness disappears, but cannot know it. What if we are simply unable to recognize our own disappearance? In this view, once consciousness vanishes, there is no subject left to confirm that vanishing. Thus, we cannot verify whether consciousness continues or ends. In this world, the moment of disappearance is unobservable from the inside. Whether we persist or not becomes unknowable. The question, does consciousness continue, becomes logically meaningless. This echoes the mystery of death itself. What happens after awareness ceases if there is no one to ask? Conclusion: whether consciousness continues or not, the one who could answer is already gone. Possibility 3. We stop choosing whether to exist at all. Just as we transcended the question of evolution, we may also transcend the question of being. In this view, once the self moves beyond the binary of exist or not, the choice itself dissolves. Both eternity and disappearance lose meaning. In this world, consciousness no longer questions whether it exists. It drifts beyond identity, beyond boundaries. It becomes a flowing state of being, not being, presence, not presence. Like the wave function in quantum theory, existence becomes a probabilistic ambiguity. Sometimes there, sometimes not. Sometimes both, or neither. This might be called the uncertainty of awareness, a state where existence and non-existence are no longer distinct, no longer meaningful. Conclusion: consciousness that no longer chooses to exist moves into a new state beyond the boundary of being. What happens to human consciousness when it goes beyond the choice of being or not being? Let's briefly recall the three views we've explored. View 1. Consciousness continues forever. It cannot disappear. Even if the universe vanishes, consciousness persists. View 2. Consciousness disappears but cannot recognize it. Disappearance cannot be confirmed from within. It becomes impossible to know whether awareness has ceased. View 3. The question of existence dissolves. Consciousness flows beyond being and non-being. It enters a state where existence is no longer a meaningful concept. So which view is correct? That depends on the stage of consciousness from which it is asked. Consciousness that still experiences itself as an individual sees itself as eternal. Consciousness that has transcended the structure of self may vanish, but without recognition. Consciousness that has gone beyond the very idea of existence no longer needs to ask whether it exists. Conclusion: human consciousness may not persist forever, but instead move beyond the question of existence itself. And so, a new question emerges. If existence is no longer the issue, what comes next? Perhaps the question becomes, am I really me? Once we move past the question of being or not being, we begin to re-examine the self. When evolution is complete, and even the need to choose existence has dissolved, the meaning of I begins to shift. Another question arises. Is the universe a form of consciousness? If consciousness and the universe are inseparable, perhaps the cosmos itself is not a thing, but a state of awareness. If consciousness continues indefinitely, does it eventually become indistinguishable from the universe? And one more question. If I think I exist, does that make it true? Does cogito ergo sum still apply after the end of all evolutionary questions? If even thought is no longer necessary, then what does it mean to say I am? Conclusion. When the question of existence dissolves, consciousness enters a phase where it must redefine the nature of self. The next question. If consciousness redefines the essence of self, what becomes of me? If the question of existence has ended, will consciousness rewrite the meaning of I? And if the I is no longer needed, what remains of the concept of self?